Welcome to the Chicago Money Show. My name's Bridget Sullivan Mermel. A viewer suggested today's topic, which is solar in Chicago. Now, I'm actually a literal tree hugger myself, but I thought, who else cares? But then as I started talking to people about it, there was so much enthusiasm. And so I thought, as I've gotten into it, it's like, this would be a fantastic show. And so we're going to talk about changes in the industry that have really brought the cost down and make it affordable. And we're going to be talking about, is it a good investment? Does it even work in Chicago? And what about when it snows? Our guest is Cody Thiel. He's got E equals solar. Welcome, Cody.
Thanks for having me on, Bridget. I'm excited.
Great. So let's start right in. Can going solar save you money? How does that work?
The answer is almost always yes. Now, obviously, there's some factors, right? Like you could live in the middle of a forest or have a big tree by your house, and solar is not going to work. But for most folks, as compared to what they're going to pay for their utility bill, it'll definitely save them money. Yes.
Okay, great. And so what's changed? Because it used to seem like it was expensive, and now it seems like the news is that no, it's affordable. Tell me more about what's changed.
Yeah, that's a great question and perspective. So part of it is kind of what we've experienced the last year, 2 years, but also the last 10 years. So a combination of rising prices for energy. So if energy was really cheap, then we wouldn't really have a financial need for solar, but also economies of scale with solar have lowered the manufacturing cost. So that combination has made it so there's a big enough delta or difference between what it would cost to maintain your home on the traditional grid versus using renewable solar or renewable energy through solar, and government incentives make that even sweeter.
Yeah. Okay, great. So why don't you tell me a little bit about the tax breaks that you can get and how that works?
Yeah. So there's two tax breaks. One that was just passed in the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA. Before you could get an incentive or a tax credit through the government, it was 26%, and that was going to go or sunset or go away. And the government just extended it to 30%. And so then also Illinois has an even better incentive called an REC, Renewable Energy Credit. And that varies based off production and location, but it can be anywhere between an initial 20 to 30% of the value of the solar system in Illinois. So Illinois is literally the best state financially to go solar in because you have two credits. You have a state and a federal incentive, and it really is crazy good deal right now because of those two incentives.
So can you give me an example, like someone you know, or how it's worked for you? Tell me more about how is it all played out?
Yeah. So again, every home is different, but Illinois, we're running 4 crews, doing one install per of those crews a day. So for most of the homes in Illinois that we service, how it usually works is obviously solar is going to reduce or lower your electric bill. In terms of the financial side of it, if someone decides to pay cash for solar, it's kind of like owning versus renting your home, right? Like instead of paying rent to a landlord, you're just going to buy your home outright, and now you don't pay your rent anymore, you own your home. Now, not everybody can afford to buy a home or solar system. And so there's several different financing vehicles. And similar to owning versus renting a home, typically when you buy a home, your mortgage is lower than your rent payment would have been. The added bonus with solar is that there's government incentives that really function similar to a down payment, so that your monthly finance cost is significantly lower than your monthly fee that you pay for your energy from the grid. Again, depends on the home, the sunniness and everything, but it's usually 20 to 40% lower, even if you finance a project.
Okay, so what kind of numbers are we talking about? What is the average project in Illinois, if you have that number off the top of your head?
How much? So the average system size is 10.2 kilowatts. That doesn't mean a lot. Mm-hmm. The average bill is $140 a month.
Okay.
So we'll use the
so
nice
people
round
know
number,
how much their electric bill
$150
is. Yeah, so they can. Okay, so that's how much the average bill is. But then, how much does the actual system cost? Like, if you were going to pay cash for it, what would that be?
So you pay cash for it, like a net system price, or that you have gross, right, and then after incentives. So before incentives, anywhere from, for that average system size, your $25,000, $35,000 depending on location. And then your net price is going to be around $12,000 to $15,000.
Okay.
Yeah, 12, 13 to 16, depending on the size. So usually incentives cover about half the cost if you're paying cash.
Okay, awesome. It seems like it's really cool. So what are the other reasons besides financial that people go solar?
I think we're seeing generally in the financial world a lot more decentralization. And again, I don't want to get too deep into the woods. We're seeing like cryptocurrency. Again, there's ups and downs, but people are like, oh, there's decentralization. We like that, right? Centralization of power. We have centralized power. Decentralized means we can have it on our home. And so a lot of people are choosing to have a battery backup on their home, so they have more consistent energy. And then obviously there's the environmental reasons, right? You're not using, obviously there's a manufacturing cost, both environmental and financial in solar panels, but the fuel cost is free. It's the sun. It's always ironic that the sun is what makes our homes hot, and then we have to use carbon to cool it down. For solar, we use the sun that's making it hot to cool it down. So it just makes a lot more sense. That's that. I mean, we can go a lot more into the fun part of solar and the environment, but it's definitely a lot of people, more and more people are saying, this is increasing my home value. It's cleaner energy, and I have the potential for backup if I want it. Why not?
Yeah, well, it's interesting too. I was talking to an architect to prep for the show, and he was telling me that in new homes that he builds or that he designs, that even if the client isn't interested in solar, he creates a space for the battery just in case they as things in world changes. So what you're saying is the world is changing, and it's not as we've got all the sun out there, and it's not as efficient to have a big power plant somewhere else that is polluting and then shipping all this energy here. There's other options, and that people might be more like, no, I'll create my own energy. Like, just buy this thing, it creates my own energy. And maybe that's the way that the whole world is going.
Yeah, I think it is. Mm-hmm. So, and definitely consumers are showing that. I mean, if you look at the charts for solar adoption, it's wildly rapid access right now. And it's not as fast as we necessarily like, but it's adopting very quickly. Right.
Okay. So let's get more about how you actually go about this. So if you're interested in this, do you tell me about the difference between like doing it yourself and hiring somebody else to help you?
Yeah, so solar is a little unique in that it's a construction with electrical project. Yeah. As soon as you bring electricity in, it involves a whole level of complexity and permits and authorization. Illinois has done a really good job at making sure solar is done safely and regulated, because they have that incentive. So solar companies that want to do business there have to play by their rules. And so for most people, doing it yourself is an option. It is easier to get the incentives when you go through what's called an approved vendor or an approved designee by the state. You can go to the Illinois Shines website or Illinois Power Agency website, and it gives you a list of authorized contractors that work in the state. But typically what most people notice is just because you're up on a roof, it's highly technical, and you have electrical, it's safer and actually cheaper just to go through a contractor in Illinois. And there's plenty of us out there, and you can get a really fair price.
Yeah, that's interesting because it is heavy electrical, but I was also curious about just the weight of them. Like, how much do these things weigh? Do you see houses collapse, or they're pretty light, and that's not a factor? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So if you lifted up a solar panel, it is pretty heavy, 30, 40 pounds, like, oh, wow, that's a good thing, good weight right there. But when we build solar panels or we put anything on a roof, we do pound per square foot. Okay. And usually they're 2 to 3 pounds per square foot after all said and done. And most roofs can hold up that very easily. Now, if you went on the internet right now and said, solar home collapses, I'm sure you could find some images. I've personally never actually seen it over thousands of installs. So I'm sure, just like anything, there's always that anomaly. But again, we work really closely with building departments and homes to make sure that that's not going to happen. And like we've had a few homes where we went to do an inspection and we saw old fire damage, and we said, hey, we're not sure the structural integrity of that. Let's get it fixed first, make sure that structural integrity is there, and then put it on the roof so we don't have any of those issues.
Oh, so that's interesting. So the solar installers are going to look at your roof to say, okay, do we need to do any roof repair first or roof restructuring before we put this up here? Especially because they're climbing up on the top of your house. I mean, that is a thing itself. It's not a totally safe process to climb up on your roof, or for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, just like anything else, as long as you're trained and do it properly, it's safe. But that takes time and training, right? And so,
So are most people that go solar doing new construction, or are they retrofitting existing buildings? Especially in Chicago, I'm interested.
Yeah, I mean, Chicago especially, it's probably 90% plus. The majority is retrofit for sure.
Oh, okay.
And so that's what we're noticing. There's new construction, it can happen, but oftentimes people want to say, well, I want to know what my electric bill is before I go solar. So they might, like that contractor you're talking about it, make space for solar, but they'll get some usage and see, okay, well, how much solar do I need? Oh, after 3, 4 months, even 6 months of usage, now they know, okay, in order to cover my needs in this house, I need 20 panels versus 30 or whatever that number is. So most people wait just so they can adapt to their usage.
So that's interesting. It's not an all or nothing type of project. So you can get a certain number of panels and then say, oh, okay, I want to add some. Presumably you can take some away, but you can add some too. Okay, great. So we're going to take a break here. This is the Chicago Money Show, and we've got Cody Thiel.
Do you want to know what makes Chicago great at 8? It's Taped with Rabbi Doug. For more than 30 years, Taped with Rabbi Doug has offered the city one-of-a-kind conversations and entertainment. I'm Rabbi Doug, the TV rabbi, and you can tune into my show every Monday night at 8:30 on Channel 19, CAN TV, where I will present to you the most amazing guests, entertainers, politicians, and local folk to rock your world. That's Taped with Rabbi Doug, Mondays at 8:30 p.m. on CAN TV 19.
Welcome back. We're here with Cody Thiel. We're talking about solar in Chicago. So we're going to get more into the specifics and the pragmatic elements of it. So what's the process like in Chicago? What should the viewers expect about, like, how long does it take? What are it seems like you get to engage with some bureaucracies.
Yeah, we do. Because again, solar is one of those, you can't just go out and install, right? And complex project, and the city or any jurisdiction, whether you're in Chicago or anywhere else, want to make sure people are doing things right. And so if I was a consumer and said, hey, I'm interested in solar, I'd reach out to several solar companies. And then once I chose one, and it was approved, the solar company is going to come out. They're going to send us what we call a site survey technician. He's going to measure the roof, take a lot of pictures, and we're going to send all that information to an engineering firm. Or some companies have in-house engineers. An engineer is going to measure, make sure we can, like we talked about, we can hold the roof can hold the weight load, we can fit the number of panels in, and they're going to stamp usually a structural and structural engineering and electrical stamp. And we're going to gather all the documentation, send it to the city, and they're going to look over it. Chicago's a big bureaucracy. It usually takes, if you're in a small little town, that's probably going to go through in 5-10 days. In Chicago, typically the start to finish install process is usually 60 to 90, 3 to 4 months. It's a little bit longer than most. But that's what you can expect. Installs, surprisingly, are pretty quick. Usually they're done in 1 to 2 days.
Okay.
So they're not at your house all day or over a week. So they get on the roof, install it, and then we wait for inspections. And that's another, again, depending on the time of year. Winter obviously is going to be longer because it's cold weather, and the utilities are usually working a little harder to keep the grid up and going. Mm-hmm. And so to get that inspection passed, it's usually another 60, 90 days. Trying to under promise here, not build to. It can happen faster, but sometimes it happens longer. But you don't really do anything between then. It's a hurry up and wait game, and then you're live and generating your own power on your roof.
Interesting. So the ComEd gets involved after the panels are already up and the city has already given it the approval.
Correct.
Okay, great. Interesting. Okay, so what about the weather? So we have, you may have heard, we have snow. Right, so snow, what do they work with snow? How do they, obviously from the topic of the show, they work, and it pays for itself. But what about snow? Do you have to go up there and try to get the snow off, or?
Yeah, I mean, sarcastically, we give everybody a blowtorch with their solar panels. They got to take them off, no.
And a long stick so you can get up on the roof, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So
blow dry or whatever.
Yeah, right.
So, but obviously it snows. When we do an estimate, the software is actually really cool. It does a sun hour estimate to figure out, and it uses local weather data to see how many sunny and rainy and snowy days there are. So we have a really good, accurate guess on what that's going to produce or not produce. Mm-hmm. And obviously Chicago's got a little less sun than like Arizona. So we know that.
But more than
Seattle. If it snows, yeah. So if it snows, we know that there's going to be snowy days that are just not going to produce as much energy. And usually what people see is, if you look at, like, if you're driving through after a big snowstorm, the solar panels will be covered with snow, and they'll usually melt 1 to 2 days quicker than a normal roof, just because it's just like snow's going to melt quicker on a black road than it does on the ground, just because it's going to soak up more of that radiant heat. Mm-hmm. So that's typically what we see.
It seems like hail is a big issue, because obviously that messes with the flatness of the panel. So tell me more about, so does insurance cover that? How do insurance companies even deal with that? Tell me about hail and insurance companies.
Yeah, when I first started getting solar, hail was like kind of that, how do we deal with this? We don't know yet. But solar's been around for, residential solar at scale has been around for at least a decade. Solar panels are built to withstand hail pretty well. I mean, you can YouTube videos of people destroying solar panels to see what they'll test it with, because that's just the world we live in. But we had a couple instances actually in Champaign, Urbana area where there was a hailstorm this year. None of the solar panels got damaged, but the roof did. And the insurance company just called us and said, hey, what's the quote to remove these panels and put it back on? We sent them a quote. The insurance, the homeowner just paid their deductible. The insurance company covered the roof and then covered our costs for labor just to take the panels on and put it back up.
Interesting.
So they're pretty well versed.
Do you think that it increases the value of your house?
The real estate. I'm not a real estate speculator. Yeah. So Zillow and Rocket Mortgage have recently done studies on this.
Okay.
And they've looked at their whole portfolio. They're a really big company. Mm-hmm. And Zillow put a number out there that it was 4.1% national average home increase.
Okay.
So.
And I spoke with a realtor before the show, and she said that she just doesn't see it that much to even have formed a big opinion about if it helps or hurts. So that's an interesting topic. Okay, so I have a big tree in my backyard. Is that a showstopper? Can I no solar for me?
It depends on where. So the best thing to do is just get a couple bids, and solar companies 9 times out of 10 are really straightforward. They'll be like, there's a tree there, that thing's got to go, or it's not going to work. Or they'll say, you'll get this much sun, but not this much sun. We just want to set correct expectations that it's not going to be maximum opportunity versus a full south-facing, no shade roof.
Okay.
So most likely yes, but sometimes no.
And so south-facing is preferable, like south,
correct,
no shade, a decent tilt, like a decent slant. All those help,
correct.
Right?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Yep.
And what if so I actually rent my office space, and the landlord put solar panels on the roof and on their coach house, another Chicago thing, right? And I was impressed by that, but it got me wondering, can people request this for the landlords? Can renters get into any of this, or what do you see there?
Yeah, just like any other property upgrade or something, it's ultimately the property owner's decision whether to do that or not. But yeah, they could, if they asked an owner, the landlord, would you be interested in solar? it's very easy to facilitate that conversation with the landlord and show them the benefits of it and definitely do it. Obviously, the renter couldn't go out and do them on themselves. I guess they could. They might get in trouble though with their landlord. Kind of like installing a pool on a rental you own.
Right.
Wouldn't make that ton of sense for the renter to do that, but it's definitely worth the conversation.
Yeah.
So
well,
that goes for good. Yeah.
And you're talking about the whole approval process. The renter couldn't probably do that without the landlord being involved. What about condo buildings? I know that condo buildings get together and put rooftop decks up so that they can increase the value of their resale. And I don't know exactly how much it helps, but it can't hurt. At least it's an amenity. What about solar?
We are seeing more apartment buildings and condo buildings using solar. And something called virtual net metering, where the community can take part in it as well. It's a more nuanced conversation, right? Okay. Like if you own a commercial building and you're the sole owner, you kind of do whatever you want. Same with the home. For a condo building, it just depends on that HOA, the community association's rules and regulations and their covenants. And we are seeing that more and more for townhomes and condos. Just depending on their local laws and regulations.
Yeah, that's interesting because when I lived in a condo, each condo had I paid for my own electricity. So presumably maybe I could put some panels on the roof for myself. I don't know. Yeah, but obviously I'd have to cooperate with my neighbors. Yeah, interesting. And what about age and demographics? So I think there's an impression that it's about young people.
Yeah, and when I first got into solar 8 years ago, I thought, oh, this is like a young people gig. I think the average, I need to look this up, but I think the average age for solar customers is 56. So it's definitely on the older side of things, which you'd be surprised. But again, for most folks, solar is not so much an environmental decision; it's just a financial. And maybe people on that side of the age spectrum are just financially wiser, or they're more experienced.
And they're less intimidated.
The average age is 50 plus for sure.
And maybe able to take on a project. Because a lot of people with young families or whatever, it's like the last thing I need is another project. So when you're older, maybe if you've got more bandwidth to oh, okay, great, let me improve my house this way. What about people who are, when we're talking about the dollars, it's like, okay, this is a pretty big outlay. And sure, I can get loans, et cetera. But are there incentives for people that might have lower income or like a more modest home?
Yeah, and this is again why Illinois has just been really great state to work with solar, because there are leasing programs available for people that maybe don't have the cash available, that want to pay for it front, or even don't have a tax credit or moderate income. And so as long as they're good standing with credit and they own their home, they can go solar with a leasing vehicle where another third party, we call it TPO, third party ownership, owns the solar panels, and they just translate that to a lower kilowatt hour rate to a homeowner. So when I say kilowatt hour rate, with gas, we pay dollars per gallon. In electricity, we pay dollars per kilowatt hour. And so typically let's say your electricity bill is 15 cents per kilowatt hour. A solar leasing company will give it to you for 12 cents per kilowatt hour. So for having solar on your roof, your saving is the delta between those two, 3 cents a kilowatt hour, which is that 20-30% savings.
Okay, and then what happens to the other electricity that's produced? Does it all go to you and you just save some money for having the panels on your roof, or does it go in the big grid out there?
Again, it depends on the home and the situation, but most homes self-consume the energy. And then there's a vehicle in Illinois or a program called net metering, where the kilowatt hours are tracked with the grid. And in most homes, we try to create what's called a net zero home, or 100% offset. And that's not always possible. Sometimes people are 50, they're like a hybrid home. They have 50% solar on that runs with those credits, and 50% that they have to pull from the grid. So again, every home's different. I know it's hard to give, I want to give concrete answers, but just like a custom home build, you can't give answers until the property and the property owner's desires. Same with solar. Yeah. But yeah, there's definitely options and flexibilities. Just like a Prius is not all electric, but it's still a lot cheaper on gas than a full gas vehicle.
Right.
Similar with that, there's options like that with solar.
And moving in the right direction anyway. Okay, so we've got about 1 minute left. I like to ask all my guests this. What brings a sense of meaning and happiness to your life and work?
Yeah, what I've loved about solar and working at Equals is that we try to help both sides of the coin, both the people that are working for us and our customers. With customers, again, savings is different for every home, but oftentimes 20, 30, 40% is what they'll save on their electric bill. And especially during a time of rising costs, that can really have a meaningful, immediate impact on people's lives and the environment, right? And then on our employees, solar is a new growing industry. So we can take people that don't, you can't go to college for solar, you know? And so there's a lot of people that are saying, hey, I want to get in a new growing industry. So we'll take these new people that are, just come out right out of high school or whatever, and we'll used to thinking of making, $15 an hour at a normal job. And well, hey, we can take them and they can make $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year learning how to install solar. And so seeing both sides of the coin have a win-win situation, it's like super fulfilling and like keeps us like going every day.
Great. So my name is Bridget Sullivan Mermel, and you can find out more about my fee-only financial planning firm at www.sullivanmermel.com. And there you can sign up for the newsletter, and we give you a heads up on upcoming episodes of the Chicago Money Show. And if you want to ask a question, please send an email to ask@chicagomoneyshow.com. Thanks for watching.